Hey guys, cheers for tuning into another video. So we're going to be talking a bit about season discovery and a little bit of a classic catechism. So this is going to be going over two subjects, two topics. One of them aspect is what we're getting in phase 5, as it's drawing really close at the time of this video, so let's go over that. So the two topics we're going to be covering is the whole flexible raiding and the whole lockout for the raid shenanigans. So let's just cover the first bit. So in phase 5 we're getting flexible raiding I should say, for Blackwing Lair and Zul'Gurub. Now I'm glad we are getting this because Molten Core and Gun Temple were different annoying beasts because they're fixed player raiding, and in my opinion, ever since Blizzard brought out the technology in modern World of Warcraft, Flex player raiding should have never been a thing, even in the classic servers. So why is that? Fixed player raiding just seems to be a remnant of a bad design, or a design inhibited by the fact of Blizzard may have at the time never thought of it or never had the technology for it. Because I'm strongly under the impression if Blizzard actually developed this technology day one, during when vanilla was released, we would have it, and that's how we would be going forward. They'll still do the 40 raids, but where it starts from, possibly 20, you never know. But what we're getting in Blackwing Lair is 20 to 40, Zul'Gurub being 10 to 20. One thing I'm really disliking with some of Blizzard's decisions when it comes to season discovery is the inconsistent designs. So in phase 4 we had Molten Core, Elixir, Kazakh and Azugos release. Azugos, Elixir and Kazakh were flexible raiding in the season discovery format, where it's 20 to 40 players, but Molten Core was left to be 20 players, which just didn't make any sense. As if you're running as a guild, then you can run those raids with any players above 20. To have no benching, the Molten Core you would have to bench people. Not to mention those other raids are bi-weekly lockout. Now Molten Core originally was going to be a bi-weekly lockout, but I'll discuss that later on. With the fixed player raiding, it just provided inconsistency how you were going to do that. It meant benching, and this is something that the classic continuity, or whatever it's going to be termed, suffers from. Now, a lot of people that are playing these versions of the game, I'm going to assume they are classic players that played it back in the day, or the long-running Warcraft players that want to experience different aspects of Warcraft as close to as it was. So we're going to be adults by age, not mentality. And this also comes with responsibility, not just with families, people having families, they're caring for other families, they've got a household to look after physically, work longer hours if they're required to. I'm not a believer of, as we've gotten older we have less time. It's just a case of, do we want to log in to play the game? Now, Season Discovery, in my opinion, has fun content. It is a fun version of the game to play. I enjoy the classic world still more than the modern World of Warcraft. It's a very lovely adventuring place, and when it comes to endgame, there should be less obstacles. Now, the obstacles to be removed isn't anything associated with preparation, difficulty, or grind. The obstacle that should be removed, and they are going to be removed in phase 5, is the social aspect. But let's just talk about how this still impacts the classic continuity and what Molten Core was, and how Blizzard should never go to this design. When it comes to fixed player raiding, especially if they're on a single weekly lockout, people need to arrange their scheduling, their real life scheduling, to attend that raid. People enjoy raiding, they find it great fun to do. And it's a pain when you have to arrange things around you. In some cases, They may need to get one of the parents to look after a child. They may need to say no to friends and their social obligations. And there could be a myriad of reasons. There even could be medical care that they need to postpone or adjust their scheduling to take account of that. All very real things. But when people get a fixed player raid and they sign up, they do in advance, nothing wrong with it, and actually for the groups arranging it, they're doing nothing wrong either. They're just against the system. The player that gets benched perhaps the day before, they feel quite frustrated. But it makes sense, it can be explained, we all can relate to it. We all make plans. We all could have plans, or we could make another plan on that day. But we tend to say no to other things because we want to do that. It's a hobby, it's a joy to do. So it's really strange that Blizzard is going this route, still with the classic continuity, because that should have not been a thing. Flexible raiding should have been in Burning Crusade, if not Classic Era, Wrath and Cataclysm, and actually going forward. I think it was introduced early Wall of the Draenor, or maybe late Pandaria. I can't recall exactly when it was introduced, but it should have been there. The social problems are a thing, there is friction. The only real friction I believe that should be there is people's genuine lack of preparation and subsequently lack of progress. When you have to bench people, it means at a personal level their progression is denied or it's reduced. They get less chance at getting good loot, and it's just not a great experience to have a wasted day at the end of it, and that's the most important part of it. They have a wasted day. I've been through that, many people have. Blizzard has the technology to never allow this to happen in the first place, but they still went and did it. There's certain aspects of nostalgia in World of Warcraft that is ever unnecessary and actually is not good design. We need good design to prevail in the game, from start to finish, or a redesign of aspects of the game. And fixed player raiding is not one of them. When I was looking at the forums, when people were asking, is Blackwood Lair a 40-man raid? And I'm just like, why are you fighting for this to be 40-man? Why are you fighting for this to be 20-man? As in fixed player raiding. Is it 30? No. We should have had flexible raiding, and all the raids should have been 10 to 40 from the start. With the technology that's in modern World of Warcraft that allows every encounter to scale with the players you have and the loot distribution to reflect that. Why they're doing it with this weird concoction of it's tuned for 20 players for Blackwood Lair, but you can bring up to 40 and it will just trivialize if you get 40 players, but I'm not against doing that. Not the trivialization, but I don't want people being benched or making people arranging those runs to have a more difficult time. It's just strange. And also for Zul'Gurub to have an inconsistent level of players, I would like Blizzard to have consistency, because it means yes, it's tuned to 10 players, but you're still gonna need 2 tanks. So if you're a group that can, if you're in a guild that can actually run 20 player plus content, you're gonna have 2 to 3 career tanks, primarily 2. Then you have the Zul'Gurub where you're gonna have to split that group into 2, but then you're down to you still would have had 2 career tanks. They should have made it 10 to 40 throughout, because it allows the distribution of tanks and healers to remain better. The proportion per group is still the same. It's 2 tanks. The pool of players in the server, I should say, will be vastly better because you only have those pool. If you go into Zul'Gurub and you need to split that, you need more tanks. You need probably more healers. It just doesn't make any sense. So it would have been preferable if you can run as the same group through all of the content instead of splitting it apart. I hope Blizzard doesn't continue with this design going forward after this, and they introduce the flexible raiding that's in modern World of Warcraft. So that's my fight. I've been fighting for flexible raiding, and I'm glad we've got something that allows us to not bench people, but I want them to go all the way and actually introduce the proper system. In modern World of Warcraft, you do experience that issue when it comes to mythic raiding, because that's 20 player fixed, and that still has the same issues. In my opinion, I'm not against that difficulty. I do think having that level of difficulty is good for the game, good for the players, and good for spectators. But I don't think it being 20 players is actually a good idea. I think that still should have been flexible. And classic catechism or the continuity, I don't understand that. I don't understand why Blizzard stuck to the fixed player rating. There's a lot of things when they went through each of those expansions, and actually when they brought in Classic at the time, the vanilla Classic, is what could we have done different? What systems and interface we have that's much better now? The flex, of course, I'm talking about is great. The UI, the adjustable UI by default in the base game of since Dragonflight and War Within is fantastic. The UI to search for other players, to find other players or look for other players doing various content around the whole game, that should have been in Classic. It should have just been. We have such a rudimentary UI for it. Now, here's the thing, guys. I understand there's nostalgia, but a really bad UI does not make nostalgia. It just doesn't. It doesn't trivialize the game. It doesn't make the game worse. It doesn't make it easier. It doesn't make the preparation less relevant. It just means how you interact with that specific content becomes more streamlined. It becomes better. It takes away the frustration of the social element in the game, and that's the biggest friction of any MMO, is the social friction. Having a bad interface to look for people will just make whoever's looking for it frustrating, and people who are looking for groups frustrating, because you're looking at a really bad UI. Before people talk about that look for group add-on, if you justify that as not having the UI in the base game, it's hypocritical, because you're saying you'll use the add-on, but you wouldn't use what Blizzard gives you. That makes no sense. It's just a better way of doing it, and having the modern UI functionality and the tech functionality in Classic will be a much better experience. Perhaps there's some technological restrictions that's in that engine. I don't know, but I don't believe they're different engine. I believe it's still the same engine, just made to look like Classic. Because a lot of the features is still the same. A lot of the graphical settings are there from modern and Classic. So I don't believe there is a technical limitation as opposed to just Blizzard's weird inconsistency in this. So hopefully they rectify that. They streamline all of the raids. They introduce the flexible raiding that's in modern World of Warcraft throughout all of the raiding, and retroactively fit them to BFD, Nomaran, Sunken Temple, and we've got Molten Core is gone. That'll make a start to finish experience for people making new characters, new players starting onto the server, amazing. I'm also going to say this, and it's for people who fight for 10 player raiding. I'm a firm believer that looking or arranging for a 10 player group isn't any quicker. Once they're running, they're easier to organize and to operate, but in terms of actually getting the groups made, looking for the groups, looking for people for the groups, I don't believe they're any faster. I think it just takes as long because you still need 2 tanks, you still need 2-3 healers, you're still limited to what you actually need. And the 10-player raids were designed to be quite easy in their mechanics because they were made to not account for certain class abilities. You might notice from Sunken Temple, you needed mages and druids to do them. You needed certain classes and certain spells to operate, and I think that's great. If you have a 10-player raid, you can't have that. You're going to have incredibly simple mechanics that are not that enjoyable, especially with the toolkit that we do have, and I like to use as much of our toolkit as possible, even if some people don't want to use them. It's good for the game to have it usable and there. And if you have 10 to 20 at least, you can account for the class variants. If you're missing certain roles that you absolutely need, like a tank or a healer, and you have 13, 14 people, there you go. It's just a much better design. And we'll go on to the next topic, which hopefully I can make this short, which is the whole lockout shenanigans. Now, if people didn't know, Molten Core was meant to be bi-weekly alongside of next year Kazakh and Azure Ghost. And for the life of me, that was idiotic. I knew that was idiotic when they changed that to single week lockout, because it made no sense. I get there's a bit of nostalgia, and there's a lot of people who have a nostalgia to the associative difficulty they had with Molten Core back in the day, but that does not exist now. It hasn't existed for a long time. The bi-weekly was a good game design because it was good for the game. It was good for the bulk of the players and how they wanted to play that. With single weekly lockout, it means you're playing less. It also means certain scheduling allows for people to have fresh lockouts more often in a week. So it's just more flexible when it comes to people's time. It also means if we never had the flexible raiding at all, it means if with Molten Core, if that was bi-weekly but it was still fixed player raid was 20, it means if someone was benched on a Wednesday, they could partake in the next lockout. They don't have to wait a week to find out if they're raiding again. And that is significantly more beneficial. And the combination with flexible raiding makes it an amazing thing. And from the looks of it, Blackwing Lair is going to be single week lockout. Now, to my knowledge, to my understanding, just like Molten Core, it wasn't big and it wasn't that difficult. So why does it need to be a week? And like I expressed, if someone can't make a certain fresh lockout, they can attend again quite soon. They don't have to wait and waste a whole week or feel like they need to be pressed to raid in a pub where they won't enjoy that. People want to raid in the group that they signed up with, the guild they applied with, or whatever it is, or friends. It's a more pleasant experience for them. And to wait a week to play with them again just seems really bizarre. And if people generally lack the time to play to take advantage of that, I don't think Blizzard should have listened to them. I'm glad Blizzard's listening to players and taking feedback. It's generally refreshing for the last couple of years since Dragonflight. But there are times where there is really bad feedback, and this was one of them. Because this feedback is essentially bad for the game. To those players, and I'm spitting a bit, sorry for that. To those players, it might have been beneficial that they can just log in for 1 week and click off for a whole week. But how is that good for the game? How is that good for people who enjoy playing the game? Who enjoy the content that's actually in the game? I think the content, the interaction, people want good reasons to log on. People don't see these type of content as chores. One of the things that people are loving about War Within is that the content isn't a chore. They can pick and choose what they want and find enjoyable to do. And if that makes them play more, that's fine. At least they're playing it because they like it and find it fun. Why was that denied to us with Molten Core with the bi-weekly? And next year Kazakh and the Zugos have the bi-weekly lockout. But there's such simple content. It's such simple encounters. The Zugos a little bit, but it's so short-lived. And that warrants the bi-weekly lockout. But Molten Core is also very short as well. It didn't last long to last. You can do that on a single raid night in 2 hours. It's just the way it is. This is also true with modern World of Warcraft and classic Continuum as well. The raids and the content are good fun. It's unnecessary for them to have such a long lockout, especially when you're done and dusted, especially when people generally enjoy them. And it's just bizarre. And again, if it was more frequent, it would resolve more social interactive issues and it would actually be annoying. If people feel pressed and need to raid more often, then quite frankly they need to speak up to the people they're playing with and make it known. But there is a lot of people out there that don't feel like that. That was me, and I'm not saying I would have raided bi-weekly all the time with those fresh lockouts. I just like having the option to do so. Because the game is fun. Then we shouldn't be denied our fun. That's all I'm going to say with that. Till next video, and I will see what that will cover.